before.
Now, you may have heard of Jerry Seinfeld's very popular Comedians in Cars. How about Historians in Cars? Well, at least that's what I thought I might do here. I decided to run a GoPro camera while I interviewed Andrew Roberts about historical writing in the Churchill book, and I don't think anyone really wants to sit and watch us drive in a car for an hour, so I'm just going to give you 3 or 4 minutes here of Andrew describing his writing process, and then hopefully that will be enough to attract you to want to listen to the entire podcast on a walk or something of that kind. In any event, sit back, relax, and click on the link below and listen to our entire conversation. By the way, the sound's a whole lot better on the podcast than it is in this video right here. So cheers, and we'll see you at the other side.
But the next thing, of course, is you've got to decide whether or not you're going to build up the book by stages, or collect all the information and then write it down in one fell swoop. And I'm a true believer in the latter, because I am constantly fearful that I'll come across some piece of evidence that will undermine what I'd originally believed about my subject.
So all research and all writing, so 2 distinct phases.
Totally distinct phases.
Wow.
There's a moment where one stops and the other starts, and so I'm able to put back the writing part until the very last minute of the process, and I write off however many days I think it'll take. In Churchill's case, it took 100 days of doing nothing but writing. It's quite a intellectual slog, but it's also intellectually challenging. It's enjoyable in a weird kind of masochistic way. I get up very early in the morning when I'm doing the writing part. It's at 4:30 in the morning, sometime when people aren't going to disturb me. And then in the afternoon, I drink a can of Red Bull, which keeps me sort of completely wired until...
battery acid will do that to you. That's awful stuff. I use it too, but...
yeah, and it never fails to keep me really going until just about bedtime, and then I sleep very soundly and start the next day. It's quite a slog.
So how many words? I mean, I used to aim for 1,000 words a day when I'm in a writing project. Sometimes more, but that's got to be way more than that.
I averaged over 5,000 words a day over the 100 days. Yeah, so that's why the book is over 500,000 words long.
Oh my goodness!
And it's once you get into it and you know that you've got to be through a chapter. My chapters tend to be 10,000 words long, and I prefer to overwrite and then allow a process afterwards of cutting back and editing. And so once you know what is expected of the day, you just jolly well get down and do it. It destroys social life, of course. My wife says that there was a 3-day period when I was writing chapter 10 about the Dardanelles when I didn't wash. I can't remember it myself, but I can't remember much of the 100 days, frankly.
Well, that to me sounds like an immersive experience, because nobody washed the Dardanelles either.
Well, yes, and so I was in my dressing gown and pajamas and slippers for 72 hours, trying to just get it right. And once you're deep into the process, anything that disturbs you can suddenly irritate you terribly, or frustrate you at least. So I don't think I was a very good companion really to anybody else at that time.
Now, how do you organize? So, 2-part question: how do you organize your research material, and do you work from an outline, either a short one or a long one, or you have 2-stage outlines? Sort of, how does that intermediate process work?
No, I don't like outlines because I find that as soon as you start getting into the archives, outlines go straight out the window. So I, of course, as an historian, you can keep to the chronology, and the thematic approach doesn't work if it's total. You just have to slip the themes into the correct points in the overall chronology. And so unless there's a narrative, I don't believe people can sort of enjoy books, history books or biography, unless there's a narrative. Winston Churchill never got up one day and said, today I will deal with the issues of church and state or whatever. It just doesn't happen like that. And so long as the reader will go along with you, so long as they understand that you're giving them enough evidence to take a totally different stance if they want to. If you hate Winston Churchill, you will find enough evidence in my book somewhere to wind up hating him just as much or even more. But you'll also notice that I don't hate him at all. I think he made terrible mistakes on a very regular basis, but overall I think he was a very great man.